Last night, I saw my wife sitting under the kitchen light. She was folding each towel, quietly, neatly. No music, no words, just the sound of fabric touching and time passing. I stood at the doorway, watching the woman who has lived with me for over 3 decades. I used to remember the color of her eyes when she smiled. I used to kiss her forehead every morning. But somehow, how long has it been since I last did that? She didn't leave, no collision, no shouting match. We still have dinner together, still ask each other how the day was, still lie side by side each night. But deep inside, I know something important has been lost. Have you ever felt like me? A woman who once looked at you as if you were her whole world? But now, that gaze has turned perfunctory, cold, weary, and silent. She doesn't blame you, she just doesn't share stories anymore. You don't see it every day, but you feel it. She is slowly withdrawing, her trust, her smile, her intimacy, piece by piece, silently. Not because she doesn't love you anymore, but because so many times she tried to love you alone, unreciprocated, unsafe. And do you know the bitterest truth? You're not a bad person. You've just forgotten how to make her feel loved. You're too busy, too tired, or you simply believed that just by not leaving, you were enough. But a woman by your side at 50 or 60, she doesn't need someone who just stays. She needs someone who sees her, listens to her, and loves her like she still matters. If you're still reading this, perhaps something inside you is stinging. An old memory, a former look, a sigh from the other side of the bed that you used to ignore. If so, stay with me through this video. I won't tell you grand truths. I just want to share 3 small things, very small, but enough to make the woman who is slowly drifting away turn back. If that's what you need, this is where it begins. And if you're thinking of someone you once loved, comment her name below. Not for anyone else, but to remind yourself that she's still here. And you still have a chance.
I used to think safety was something grand. As long as I worked hard, paid the bills on time, and kept this house intact, she'd feel loved. But I was wrong, and I paid the price with months of silence. One evening, my wife, Karen, turned her face to the wall as we lay beside each other. I asked, "Are you okay?" She only replied, "Yeah." And that answer marked the end of a conversation that spanned 30 years. I didn't understand then, but now I know she didn't need me to carry the world. She just needed me to be there, truly present with her emotions. Maybe you're also in a long-term relationship, 20 years, 30 years or more. You're still here. She is too. But you feel something has changed, a distance, a quietness you don't know when it started. The woman beside you, even at 50 or 60, still craves emotional connection. She has just stopped believing that anyone is truly ready to listen. She was once a girl who laughed heartily, talked endlessly, dreamed, loved fervently. But as years passed, when you stopped asking, "Are you okay?" with genuine concern, she began to retreat. Not because she had nothing to say, but because she didn't want to risk disappointment again. Safety for a woman isn't about the money you bring home, not about a working hot water heater or a clean garage. It's in the way you look at her when she is at her weakest. I once saw Karen cry, but not out of sadness. It happened one day when I randomly put my hand on her back while she was washing dishes and said, "I know you're tired." She didn't reply, just cried. Not because I did something grand, but because finally, after so many days, someone saw her. Men in their 50s or 60s often think, "I've done enough. I didn't leave. I didn't betray." But sometimes, precisely because we stay but don't show up, she feels loneliest. She wants safety not only because you're standing beside her, but because you truly listen to her without interrupting, not rushing to fix, no sarcasm, just understanding. And do you know, unfelt emotions are what kill physical intimacy first. She might still love you, but if she doesn't feel understood, seen, heard, she will close off that intimacy like a door locked from within. Have you noticed her avoiding your gaze when she changes? Have you noticed she only touches you when she really needs it? Not because she doesn't love you, but because she's no longer sure you still love her in the way she needs to be loved. I realized it because I was the man who thought love equals taking care of everything. Until I understood a wife doesn't need financial adequacy as much as she needs emotional presence in your gaze. And you may not notice clear signs, but each night she sleeps turned away, each time she doesn't respond when you speak, is a quiet retreat. And if you don't stop and draw her back, one day, she won't return. Today, if you're living with a woman who has been with you for 20, 30 years, stop for a moment, look closely into her eyes, and ask yourself, does she feel safe with me, or is she just here out of habit? In the next part, I will share 3 very small things, but if you do them right, that woman will look at you like the first day. Not because you're more perfect, but because finally you have truly seen her. There are small actions that may seem meaningless, but if you've ever truly loved someone, you'll understand. Sometimes just one well-timed touch is enough to make someone break down in tears. After over 30 years with Karen, I realized what makes a woman feel safe isn't what you have, but how you make her feel every day. Today, I want to share with you 3 things. Very small, really, but if done with subtlety and sincerity, the woman who once pulled away in pain might take a step back toward you. Not because you've changed everything, but because finally you've understood what she truly needed. I used to be a problem solver. My wife once said, "Today, I felt invisible in the meeting." And I replied, "Forget them. As long as you know your worth, that's all that matters." I thought I was being supportive, but her eyes didn't want an answer. She just needed me to sit there and truly hear her sadness. Women over 50 don't want to be fixed. They want to be seen, to know they still exist in your emotional world. The first time I just sat and listened to Karen, no advice, no quick fix, just listening. She paused for a few seconds, then gently took my hand. "Thank you for not fixing me. That's all I needed." And that day I learned, silence, when listening with presence, is not inaction. It's one of the most powerful actions of all. For years, I thought I was still holding my wife when necessary. But the truth is, I only touched her when I expected her to touch me back. One night, Karen was doing the dishes, hair tied high, shoulders thinner than I remembered. I walked up behind her, placed a hand gently on her shoulder, said nothing, expected nothing. She stood still. 30 seconds passed. I started to pull away. Then she held my hand, gently squeezed it. That was the first time in nearly 2 years she reached back out to me. Women over 50 can feel the intention behind every touch. They know when you touch out of love, and when you touch because you want something. And sometimes it's the soft, non-demanding, unhurried touch that sends the strongest message of safety. It whispers, "I'm still here, not to take anything from you, just so you know, you still matter." What did you used to call her back when you were in love? Honey? My girl? Baby? Maybe it was sweetheart, or even something personal like my sunshine. I used to call Karen Red because of her red hair back in the day. But once her hair turned silver, I forgot all about that name. One night, I saw her quietly watching me through the kitchen window. She wasn't sad, just distant, far away in her thoughts. I walked up and gently said, "Red, are you still in there?" She turned around, eyes glistening, lips trembling. "You still remember that?" And she cried, not because of the name, but because it reminded her that I still remembered the girl she used to be. The woman beside you today, she's changed. She may no longer wear makeup like before, no longer chatter excitedly, no longer wait at the window for you to come home. But deep inside, that girl is still there, just waiting for you to call her back. A few notes. To make these 3 actions truly work, do them gently, not performatively. Women over 50 have a 6th sense for pretense. Repeat them. Don't do it once. What was hurt over years needs many soft moments to heal. Do it because you want to, not because you fear losing her. She doesn't need a man afraid to lose his wife. She needs a man who genuinely wants to love her again, with maturity. You might be wondering, is it too late? Does she even want me to come back? I can't say for sure, but I know this. If tonight you turn to the woman beside you, touch her hand, expecting nothing, call her by the most beautiful memory you shared, and ask with full honesty, "Are you okay?" Not just to get an answer, but because you truly want to understand. Then maybe, just maybe, she will take one step toward you. And that's not a miracle. That's the power of 3 small things, done right, from the heart of a man ready to love again. One afternoon, I sat on the balcony. My coffee had gone cold. I stared out at the backyard garden. Karen was pruning some rose branches. She wore gloves, her hair tied up, her figure smaller now than the day I married her, and I couldn't stop thinking. I've lived beside this woman for over 30 years, and there are parts of her I've never truly seen. It turns out, loving someone for a long time doesn't mean you understand them deeply. And loving again isn't about starting over. It's about daring to see that same woman with new eyes, full of curiosity, gratitude, and respect. We all change with time. She's no longer the youthful woman she once was, and you're no longer that eager young man either. But do you know what's truly sad? It's not that time made us grow apart. It's that we stopped wanting to rediscover each other. I thought I knew Karen, her favorite food, her favorite shows, which side of the bed she preferred. But I didn't know that after 50, she started journaling every morning, not to write down tasks, but to keep her soul from drifting. I didn't know she cried quietly once because I no longer asked, "Do you want me to hold you tonight?" You think you know your wife, but ask yourself, when was the last time you felt curious about something new inside her? People often say, love in midlife is warm and peaceful. But the truth is, it can still burn bright again. If you dare to go deeper emotionally, into places most men are afraid to enter, not with flowers, not with apologies, but with quiet, consistent change. Every time you stop what you're doing and really look at her. Every time you say, "I'm here," without conditions. Every time you reach out, even unsure if she's ready to forgive. You don't have to fix all the past mistakes. You just have to show her she's no longer taken for granted. And sometimes you'll be surprised to find she's still there, still waiting for you, to look at her like you truly want to understand. We often think love is something we do, a vacation, a dinner, a gift. But a woman over 50 has been through enough to know real love is the feeling of being seen and being prioritized in her man's heart. One morning, Karen handed me a cup of coffee. I looked at her, lines around her eyes, silver in her hair. I placed my hand on hers, looked deeply, and said, "I don't think I ever truly knew who you are, but if you'll let me, I want to learn again." She didn't say anything. Then she smiled. Not a warm, romantic smile, but a quiet, relieved one, as if to say, the man she had waited for was finally looking at her again, not through memory, but through the present. If you're still living next to a woman who sacrificed for you for years, try one small thing tonight. No need for anything big. Just look at her. Really look. And say, "I don't know everything about you, but I want to understand. If you're willing, I want to love you again in the way you need to be loved." You'll see her eyes change. And even if you say nothing else, she will know the man she once loved is no longer a memory. If this video touched something in you, then it's not just a video. It's a chance. Not to go back in time, but to begin again, right where you both are. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to return to the man she once chose. Only now, with more awareness and more kindness. Leave a comment if someone comes to mind. Maybe it's her name. Maybe it's a promise you're about to make. I read every message, because I believe if you still want to love, you can always learn how to love again.